Welcome to Not So PG. I'm Brooke Blurt. My pronouns are she and her.
I'm Matty Mills. My pronouns are he and him. And before we get started, we'd like to acknowledge the custodians of the land on which we record. And for me, that's the Gadigal People of the Eora Nation.
And for me, that's the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation. Let's get into it.
Let's go. Oh, how are you, B?
I'm good. I mean, as good as you can be post-week of the referendum. I mean, it's been a very heavy week for most people. I think everyone was kind of ticking over just to be 7 days post. I think when I hit, Saturday, I was like, all right, we've got to this, one step in front of the other. How are you going?
Mm-hmm. I'm okay. I feel like I was a little bit obviously I was really upset and disappointed and frustrated and but a little bit overwhelmed by how the no came about and what sort of figures it came about with. I think I was a little bit shocked by the overwhelming amount of response for the no vote. I thought that maybe it would be a little bit more fair in terms of the numbers and a little bit more equal, but to get a result that shows that definitely the majority want to vote no was really disheartening and disappointing for me. And then I went into this weird zone where I was like, umming and ahhing whether to be silent and to deal with the process through sort of, a more privately way, or to be vocal about it and I just sort of let it go for the week. So I've not said much about it because to be honest, I'm just over it. So I've just let it go this week. But I definitely feel like I need to jump back on the wagon of what work do we need to do next? Like where is it going from here? Because we can't be silent forever. And that's the next step for me, going, okay, well, if we don't have the voice, we still have our own individual voices that we get to use, especially on our platforms. So how am I going to use mine?
Yeah, I think that's exactly how I'm feeling as well. Like in terms of, it doesn't diminish our voice. I know I was really upset in the last episode. The feelings were fresh. They were very new. I also want to acknowledge the fact that this whole process has really diminished two of the most, two of the really great things that have happened in your career recently, being in Black Showgirls and winning an ACRA for the podcast.
Yeah, I know.
And I feel like, we've got to celebrate the wins even with the losses. And I want to acknowledge that you are a beaming light and voice for our community and mob. And seeing Black Showgirls in Sydney was amazing. And I'm so proud to be in your presence. I'm proud to be your friend. I'm proud to be your podcast host because that show was amazing. Stop. And to win for Not So PG was just like a huge moment for us. So our voices haven't been diminished. We do have to look at, the little wins, and I'm really, really proud of you for that.
Oh, thank you. It was a weird night because I was backstage doing the show that I love, that I was doing, and half of us, some of us didn't want to know the result before the end of the show, and some of us were open to hearing it. And when I got the no, I was so upset and I was so angry, and I just went on stage and all I could feel within my body was anger. I was frustrated. But then I went backstage and I had all these texts from the Nova mob being like, you won. And so it was jarring because I was angry about the no vote, but then I had won an ACRA for using my voice, and I was like, wow, this is confusing. But I know that
what a contrast, right?
Yeah, but that win is so beyond me. It's about representation and also, this space of audio and radio and podcasting. I'm like, there needs to be more black fellas in this space. And if I get to win an award for using it, it's like, well, I'm in the right place,
Actual though. And I feel like it's such a shame that the timing of things, but at the same time, I mean, the contrast of that was jarring and is jarring, but at the same time it's like, maybe we didn't get the overall voice from Australia in some degree, but maybe our little community and our little, our built community that we have are listening and are saying that your voice is amazing and it's important. So if we can just keep going with that. You were saying, you know, you had a lot of, you know, people messaging you, and I think this week I've had such an overwhelming response of messages from all people in the community that I've built over my, you know, bachelor and bachelorette career and being on TV. But I have had so many sorries.
Yeah, I know.
You know, and it's the general, you know, like, I'm sorry that this country is racist. I'm sorry that you're, you know, that this is such a disappointing, like, even like ex-boyfriends and people obviously who know how much this meant to me and my community and my mob have reached out and, you know, come out of the woodwork, which is like, you know, really supportive and really encouraging that, you know, people do care. You know, but the majority, you know, this is what it feels like to have a majority vote on your life, which we spoke about in the last episode. Yeah. And I've taken the time to respond to a few, but I found it really overwhelming and very difficult that here I am again in a moment of grievance, having to send, again, you know, white Caucasian people a response to be like, yes, thank you for your response. Appreciate the support, encouragement. You know, maybe in the future, First Nations people can become recognised and acknowledged, and having to put that effort and admin into this, it seems, you know, exhausting, but at the same time, there's a little fire in my belly that's like, I think this is a good opportunity to reflect and say, okay, let's seize the moment. And let's use our platforms once again, to educate and inspire people to do more and to do more for First Nations people and to be supportive of First Nations people, which we always have been. And it's just getting other people, I guess, you know, the ball is in their court. It's just like, all right, like you can choose to participate now, you know what I mean? And it sucks that, you know, we're having to say that, but it's like, well, are you choosing to participate or are you choosing to stand on the sideline? Like, what are you doing here? You know what I mean? Yeah.
Well, as you said, like, it definitely draws a hard line in the sand of where this country stands when it comes to, like, First Nations people and how they view us and how they, you know, recognise us. Because for me, that was one of the only positives that could have come out of this, is that we know where we stand and we know what we're up against. Because a lot of the time when you're trying to have conversations with people from the wider community about First Nations issues, or, you know, why it's so important to make sure that we keep on pushing ahead for progress for our people and not be stagnant or, you know, think that things are just rolling along and that things are going to be great for us, because they're not, obviously. It's like we need to continue to be extremely vigilant when it comes to progress, and we need to make sure that we are always loud and always pushing forward, because this is proven that progress isn't linear. It feels like a backward step in some sort of weird way when you think about even the referendum that happened over 50 years ago, you know, for our people. It feels like if we could be recognised then and not now, what has happened within that time? Yes, there has been progress, but there has definitely been, you know, there's definitely been a lack of progress too. So that's one of the only positives I'm taking out of it, is that we get to know where we stand. And when someone says to me that they don't think Australia is a racist country, I actually have something that I can absolutely point at and say, well, here you go. You were all asked to vote. So I can point at that like one of them school teachers with the ruler. Well, Exhibit A.
100%. I feel like it's so essential, you know, and this is the thing. I can't believe we're just such optimistic and very hopeful people, aren't we? I hate the word hopeful just as what you do. And I think, but we are all about respect, you know, and solidarity as well, like coming together in genuine spirit. Like, I think we always look at, you know, what we can do better, and we always look to the future, and we're always thinking, like, a lot of comments, you know, throughout this whole Voice campaign that have been thrown around is not from mob, but, you know, from general public, has been, stop looking into the past. It's the past. You know, comments like move on, you know. But I don't think people realize what, you know, the bigger picture stuff. You have to understand the past to move forward. And we're always looking, you know, as mob, we look to our past, and it's not a very, you know, kind path. You know, our people have been and experienced such discrimination since colonization, and it hasn't changed. We could look at that if it had changed, but it hasn't changed. Like, we're still experiencing that today. And yes, we're all healing, and everyone is healing. And I think First Nations people are always in that healing process as well, because, you know, it's not like we wake up every day and have such privilege. You know, we do in some degree. We've worked for this, you know, we understand our privilege in a sense. But I think I want to talk to something that is not really towards our own mob and our own people. I want to talk to what the general public can do here, and the opportunity that is here now, and that's allyship. And we talk about this a lot, you and I, about what makes a good ally. And I want to clarify and say, first and foremost, that allyship is not about pity or charity or sympathy. Well, maybe it is about sympathy. It's about empathy. It's about understanding your privilege in a position to understand what solidarity, respect, and genuine collaboration looks like. And when it comes to Aboriginal communities, what you can do and your pivotal role in that, I think.
Yeah.
Do you agree?
I agree. I think that it's a really big opportunity for wider Australia to learn more about our people in this moment, because I'm afraid that what has come from this referendum is a clear understanding that the wider community don't have enough understanding of who we are as people, and because there is so much misinformation out there about our people, especially through stereotypes in the media. You know, like, people have this idea of who we are. People outside our community have this idea of who we are, you know, even to the point where there's, you know, Barista Boy, who I want to touch base with that a little bit later on, you know, making assumptions about blackfellas not working. But for me, I see an opportunity for allies right now to learn more about us, because the more they learn about our community, the more that they interact with First Nations people, the more that they have genuine conversations about the history of and the path that we've had to walk as a community, the more they're going to learn about us, the more empathy they will have for us, and the more understanding. And at the core of allyship is, as you said, empathy, and also just having some understanding that you can have a positive impact on somebody who may not be able to stand up for themselves sometimes, you know, or may not be able to have the reach that you have or have the audience that you have. So for me, it really is an opportunity for the wider Australian community to learn more about us. And how they can do that is they genuinely need to meet black fellas. Like, there's so many people out there that I'm the only, like, there's so many white fellas out there that I'm the only black fella they've ever met in their life. And that blows my mind. I'm like, there's so many people from school who still will message me on Instagram or on Facebook if they need a quote from an Aboriginal person for something, and they just don't know any. So they literally just message me, and the topic will be so random. And I'm like, no, like, go and find the right person for this. Like, I just
that's
think
really disappointing. Yeah, that's really
truly
that's happening now.
Yeah,
it is about exposure, and it's about interaction. But the thing is also it's about you know, curiosity and will. I think willing to do the work, because I think for me, one word, privilege.
Yeah.
And I hate to, I feel like I'm always repeating myself, and I think, a lot of people who also identify and have that privilege find it really uncomfortable. But one of the key reasons I think allyship as a whole is so crucial, not just for Aboriginal people and First Nations, not just for First Nations people, but all types of people, LGBTQI people. We need to be allies on a whole. Like, I would say on a whole that I am an ally to all marginalised groups. And I think that's what we should aim for. And the key reasons to why it's so important is to understand privilege, which is the power and imbalance of I guess, like, historic things that have happened for minority groups. You know what I mean? Like, generations of people, over time have endured different things, but it's understanding what that looks like and your position in that. And, maybe it's self-reflecting, and maybe it's looking within and understanding, where your position is. Sorry, I've repeated myself a few times in that, but I'm just trying to understand how people can take that first step. So acknowledging historical wrongs committed, I guess, to First Nations people is the first step.
Yeah,
right?
Truth-telling.
Understanding that, yes, exactly, truth-telling. It's understanding that your family may not have experienced that. That's okay. That's understandable. That's what life you were born into. But other people, First Nations people, haven't been born into that. They don't have that privilege.
Yeah.
They don't have there is a thing, we throw the word out so many times, and it can can sort of get polarizing in some degree, but it's called intergenerational trauma. But people don't realize that intergenerational trauma means that the trauma has been passed down through generations. Like, can you understand that? Like, in terms of, I didn't ask for trauma. Unfortunately, my mum and my nana and her mum or dad experience that type of trauma that has also been passed down. And sometimes it's within the babies and they don't even realize, because that's what's happening. They think they don't actually understand the effects of what intergenerational trauma causes a person. Yeah. Like, you understand it, but I'm trying to make it super simple.
Yeah, I totally understand it. And I think that the idea of understanding your privilege is something that I don't think it comes easy to everyone. I think it's something like, for instance, I know I've got a few people in my life that probably and have been in my life that don't see their privilege as something that is really getting them ahead in this world, and something that puts them in positions of power. And I've had to constantly remind people around me of their privilege, because there will be incidents in my life that happen that they will be so shocked by. And I'll be like, what that means is that you have a level of privilege that you don't need to experience this. You don't have to experience this because of your privilege, and how maybe you've been brought up, or maybe what you've been given in this world, just by being who you are, not having to face certain things like racism and discrimination. So I think that privilege is a big one for allies to dig deeper into, and like to really understand what that does and where that sets them within the world, and how that they can use their platforms and their privilege for a positive instead of a negative. It's about awareness. It's like, if you can really understand what your power can do, or what your position in the world can do that maybe someone else's can't, and you'll be able to assist them in being a good ally and using your voice, because you can cut through to a different audience. Like, power to them. But I think that it's definitely something that people need to work on. Allyship, I don't think, comes naturally to people. It's about, getting getting to know a community as well, like understanding that, for instance, there's performative allyship and active allyship, and sometimes performative allyship. A good example of this, right? So recently, I've been really struggling with what to say about the Palestine and Israel conflict.
Yes,
I've been really careful in what I'm doing around that topic because I don't know enough. But just because I don't know enough doesn't mean that I shouldn't say something. And this is something that I've been reflecting on lately because this is such a poignant moment in our lives, really, seeing this sort of devastation, and seeing the things that are coming out on social media about this conflict and not understanding where to voice my opinion or how to voice my opinion. It's because I don't know enough. So I've made myself go and really look into this stuff because I'm like, when I'm going to put something out there, I want to make sure that I'm well researched.
You want it to be informative,
informative, and not just sharing something on social media as a performative ally who has no idea what's happening behind the scenes or what is actually going on within that scenario. So for me, like, what it made me realize was that there must be people out there, white fellas, who look at First Nations, communities and the disadvantage that we face and think to themselves, oh, I don't know enough. I don't know why that's happening. I don't understand it. I don't really get it. Like, why do they have disadvantage? Blah, 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 blah. And don't say anything, And just this scenario of the Israel and Palestine conflict, it was just like an eye opener for me, and also like a bit of a awakening to my allyship too. Like, where do I want to be a strong ally, and how do I want to be a strong ally for other communities? So, I'm not saying that. Why I'm saying this is because I think I've experienced what some of wider Australia probably thinks about our community, where they don't think they know enough. But you still have to say something.
Too hard basket, and I agree. I feel like watching all of the stuff unfold and the Australian media bias, you don't know what to understand and believe, and that's exactly what kind of happened with The Voice, is what's happening now in a different country on a different level, obviously, like with the senseless killing and children dying. That's not what The Voice has created, but it has the similar weight, I guess, in some degree, with voices not being heard. And I think with and it's understanding maybe there's not a wrong person and right person in the Palestinian and Israel situation, but the fact that young kids are dying, that's something that I feel very passionate and hurt by, and I think is really devastating. And so that's where I stand, that shouldn't be happening, especially in this century, but it is. And I feel like I'm at a point as well with that situation, is like, I want to make sure that I am an ally, and I believe also my values and stick to my values, where I believe that all children should have better lives and better quality of lives. So I agree. It's very hard in this situation to, you have to sit and and the thing is, because we live such a public and open life in some degree and have our platforms, people look to you to, to also encourage them on what to do in that situation, like which side. But I don't think it's about sides in this situation. I think it's about why is this happening, and how do we resolve this? And no country is coming out with a resolution. It's just continuing, and that's devastating. And it's I'm so glad. Again, I have a privilege living in Australia as a First Nations person. I can openly say that I have a privilege here, living where I can actually go down the street and walk down the street and not have a fear of my country being bombed, which fingers crossed that doesn't happen ever to us. But like,
oh God,
do you know what I mean? Like, isn't that crazy to think?
How scary is that idea, right? Oh.
Right, man. And like, gone down so many rabbit holes with this the stuff that's happening in Gaza as well. But you're right, you do have to make sure that you are putting out an informed opinion of what you believe is the right thing and sticks to your values and what your understand. You know what I mean? Like it's always, the reason why we are so passionate about, I think, talking to these concerns, I guess, these issues, is that we only ever want to empower people. Like, we want to make sure that they understand and regain their rightful place in this world and communities. You know what I mean? Society, really. Like, I feel like, this Gaza stuff has just really caused so much trauma again. It's like,
it's really devastating just to see it all unfold and to feel like you're helpless, but we're not. We can still use our voice. We can still be good allies to the communities that are affected. And I don't think you need to pick a side. I think that it is more than that. There's deep entrenched political issues that have happened here that First Nations people can definitely resonate with. And I've seen a lot of our mob, showing their allyship and support to the communities that are affected, and it is about understanding. It's like you got to do more than just see a video and believe, a social media caption. It's more than that. It's about understanding that this conflict has massive, historical weight of what's happened there, and I think that that's probably why a lot of First Nations mob that I've seen online are so vocal about this, because it feels like it's the whole idea of land and how important land is, and it feels like a lot of First Nations mob understand what it means for your land to be taken, but also to genocide. We have a history of genocide within this country, so it's like I feel like I just want to say more and do more, and but I want to be informed. I want to be really well informed before I make any sort of judgment, I suppose. But I just think that allyship is really about understanding. And allyship is about understanding and empathy. And what I mean by understanding is understanding your position in the world and understanding your privilege, and also trying to get more of an understanding of another community's sense of disadvantage as well, so that you can possibly uplift them and support them in any way that they need.
Well, yeah, I think that's through active listening and education. So the reason why we talk to, look at us reflecting on our own allyship, here trying to be informative to how you can be a good ally. But here we are again reflecting on our allyship to other cultures in other countries. And that goes to show that we want to elevate people's voices. Now, true reconciliation is what we go on about all the time. And, true reconciliation, we need that allyship, because it requires, reconciliation requires action and a commitment from people. And what we've seen, I guess, from the Voice, the Yes campaign, is that our voice is not really that considered. And the way that people who do consider First Nations voices, how can they take action and how can they commit to helping First Nations people dismantle the systems that we're going up against. Does that make sense? Yeah.
Yeah, totally. And I think that there's been two examples of why this, for me this week, why this voice was so important. And the first example was the racist rhetoric around rampant child sexual abuse in the Northern Territory. And I know that we have spoken about this, because you've been to communities where you've heard stories about this stuff. But for the opposition leader to go into Parliament and call for a royal commission into child sexual abuse in the Northern Territory without any evidence at all.
Yeah.
Shows how racist this country is. Because to call a royal commission, you need a lot of evidence. You need to prove a point. And if you go in and ask for something that you have no proof of, and when asked, where's your proof, had nothing to say, it is like, that is just another, like, that is the sort of level in the system that we're up against, where like this, that even isolated incidents can make a whole community look like child sexual abusers, like that. I just felt that from one of the things that came off the back of saying no to the voice that came a couple of days later in Parliament. It was voted down. It was like 81 to 53 within the chamber, so it didn't get up because of the no evidence, but still. And then the second thing that really struck me this week was the young fella passing away in Casuarina prison, Unit 18, which is a young boy who was found unresponsive in his cell just days before he was about to get out in an adult prison. So there's the Unit 18, which is the juvenile section of an adult prison, but they still mix with the adult prisoners, and it's like those two things really hit me hard after hearing the no, because it's like those two just reiterated why we need a voice. You don't have any evidence. Why aren't you talking to community? Why don't you go and consult with community and figure out, what needs to be done if those allegations are correct? Like that would be a perfect avenue for the voice. Then, for instance, why is a young black fella in an adult prison dying in custody? It's just
why
like,
are young people dying in our justice system?
It's just heartbreaking. And to see his mum and the statement that she put out, and just like how heartbroken she was, because that young boy should have never been in that adult prison. It was the system that failed him. But the system,
it also plays into what happened last year with Cassius Turvey. It's been a year since that young boy, and he, again, another Noongar boy in Perth. And I feel like this is my calling for home at the moment, is because I'm feeling, that I am grieving, but also grieving the young boys' lives that are being taken from systems. So the system isn't working. But the thing is, the systems will still continue until they are dismantled. And they will only be dismantled if people on the inside are First Nations people. They have to be in there changing the system, because it's like, otherwise it's just going to be a cycle. Again, our young people are still continuing to die in prison. Deaths in custody still continue to be increasing. It's like people don't realize the torment, that has happened, and why the voice would have been it wouldn't have been perfect. I can't say anything would be perfect, but I think it would have been a start where we could actually start then dismantling the systems that oppress us and still continue to discriminate against our people and still continue to kill our young people. And the thing is, we need our voices elevated more in this time now, because the wounds are open. Like, the wounds of the past have never really healed, and they won't be healed until we start to see the young people's suicide rates decrease, until there is no deaths in custody anymore. Yeah, I know. It's so disheartening when you go through a moment like going to a referendum and you get the no, and then a person comes out and just puts this, it's like it's already a pressure cooker. It's already steaming hot, and you've just chucked fuel onto the fire. Well, let's go back to, I guess, what can people do to help? And we've already explained why allyship is important to people, our First Nations people. We've already explained the depth and meaning of what good allyship could do.
Yeah.
I think it's simplifying it and understanding, where to, and I guess we've also started to where it starts, which is with that active listening, education, understanding privilege, understanding your place in society
Yeah.
to want to help elevate, First Nations people because of historical injustices, basically, right? That's overall. That's what we're trying to do. So where do people, I guess, what resources would you suggest to start with?
I think that, in today's day and age, we have access to so much. There is everything at the touch of our fingertips when it comes to social media, websites, online resources. But connecting and following First Nations creators and hearing the modern day voice of our people through social media is a really important thing, because it's something that you look at every day. You go on, most of us go on social media every day. And if you're able to understand more about blackfellas through that channel, I think that it will go a long way. I think it has a big potential to be able to allow people to understand us for who we are now and for what we want now, and for especially the younger generation, because Australia's always complaining about, we're always talking about the past. Well, start engaging with First Nations people, and because that is the future. We're not going to go anywhere. We're here. It always was, always will be Aboriginal land, and there's a very strong young voice of First Nations people in this country. So I just think that if you can engage with them through social media, that's where I would say, yeah.
Yeah. And I think reading First Nations stories,
Yeah.
I put out, reels of great books that I've read from First Nations perspectives, and memoirs, and, fiction and nonfiction, stories that have perspective and history. And I find it so, enjoyable to read about, taking myself back to that time in, and I know that it was a hard time, but, being able to have access to stories that take you back I find that's, for me, a privilege in itself, to have people have written about that, and, to have access to that. Allyship is not just, I feel, not just a, moral obligation. I think it's creating more of an inclusive society, personally. I think allyship is just so vital, and I think people should really reflect on what allyship is, just as what we do in our daily lives. I think the basis of this is, we want First Nations people have endured a lot, and to strive for a world that's inclusive, diverse, and puts our cultural richness at the forefront. I think that's what the objective of, and the reason why we think allyship is just so important to do. And I think, as a person, who cares about other people, I just personally think that if you want to be a good person, you have to be a good ally, I think.
Yeah. Well, speaking of being a good ally, I think that we should learn more about the major moment that's happening within the world, the Palestine and Israel conflict. And I think it would be great to be able to get someone who has a really deep insight and balanced view on what is happening within that. And maybe we can see if we can get someone on the pod for next week. What do you reckon? It's about learning.
I think that's
about understanding, learning, and making sure that you're, you know what you're talking about.
Yeah, and we're working together, obviously, for hope and more justice and understanding. So I think that would be perfect. So look forward to that next episode.
Okay, so tell me, have you been back to that coffee shop, Barista Boy?
Yes, I have been back to the coffee shop, and I mean, it's been a very awkward situation between. Yeah, I mean, I have seen Barista Boy, but it's been very minimal and quite abrupt interactions, which is awkward. But to be fair, I'm just not letting him defeat, my intentions in life, which is to treat people with respect and to do what I want to do and what I need to do in my life, in my business, in my work, and within my community. So I'm not letting someone diminish my voice. And if I want to, I'm not supporting his business, but I have a really good relationship with other people at the coffee shop. So I feel like, I can be a bigger person here and just say, fuck you, I'm not talking to you.
Well, can you say that for me too? Because that's exactly what I want to say to him. He really pisses me off and I don't even know him.
To be fair, this guy represents everything that I feel is the racist no vote. And unfortunately, I'm really disappointed in myself because of my read of character, and I should have actually, understood all the red flags and all the signs beforehand. And I wish that I've upon reflection now, I feel like really disappointed in myself for just, being a little bit naive to it, because I thought I could fix him, I think.
Yeah.
And that's all I want to do in the world is help people and, make sure that everyone's looked after, and I think, change people's perceptions about Aboriginal people. But I think what I really did was actually break my own heart and hurt myself. And I feel like that's why I'm still recovering from that scenario and situation, because it's really hard to hear things like that your family, your mob, your culture don't work, when that's actually the complete opposite of who we are as people and what we do. And it's hard because that's the perception of us. And to hear it from someone that I had a close relationship with is even more heartbreaking, because not only do I think that I had maybe known this person on a personal level and on a deeper level, saying it to my face was just like a kick in the teeth,
Yeah, well, you know what? Like, he is rubbish, and he needs to go and learn, and he needs to go and educate himself on a lot of things by the sound of it. It sounds like he has a very narrow mind, and that he doesn't know anything except for his own privilege and his own circle. But I mean, it's been, I feel like the last few months has just been so exhausting for blackfellas. Like, I've, even for me, and I'll speak from my point of view, like doing the play and then having this whole referendum debate like constantly, nearly every day with the wider community. It's like, it's been a lot. And so you know what I'm doing? I'm going overseas.
Going on holiday. Yay!
I am leaving the country behind. I'm packing my bags. I'm going on an adventure, and it is something that, like, I normally plan holidays well in advance. I booked this like last week, and I'm leaving in like 2 weeks.
And how do you feel about it?
Okay, so do you want to know what makes
I don't even know the full story. So how did this come about? How the fuck are we, like, where are we going? What are we doing?
Okay.
I say we because obviously I'm a part of this. Well, not really, actually. But, put me in your suitcase. I'm coming with, babe.
Well, you know what? You're so welcome. But let me tell you something. So lately I've been meeting a lot of Chileans. And what I mean by Chileans are people from Chile. And they remind me of blackfellas. They have the same sense of humor. They have this really sort of wild and adventurous side that I've just been like attracted to lately. And I'm talking about, like, I'm not talking 1 or 2 Chileans. I'm talking like in the last month, I've met maybe 20. And every time I ask someone's nationality, who's somebody who I'm meeting for the first time, they're like, I'm Chilean. And I'm like, wait, how come since like prior to 2 weeks ago, I knew one Chilean. So I made friends with this really nice guy, and how we had a lot of mutual friends, right? And we got into like really good convo, and I was talking to him about booking a holiday, and I was like, I just want to book a holiday. I need to get away, for a couple of weeks while once the show's done and I have a break before Christmas, and then I go to the States. And he was like, well, I'm going back to Chile, and I'm going back for like 4 months, and I'm spending time with my family, but I'm also like surfing the coast and going to Patagonia to like the glaciers and like having this massive like adventure. And he was basically like, what I could see was that he was so open to like experience and adventure, and that nothing needed to be cemented, and that like there was just this excitement that I could like tell that I was like really excited about hearing him talk about this trip. And so I ended up booking a trip to Chile, and I'm going to go and do like 2 or 3 weeks in Chile. I've only booked a one way, so I don't know when I'm coming back.
I love this. I love
this. Is so wild for me. Yeah, and so I'm going to Chile. I'm spending a week in Santiago. Then we're going up the coast to like the coastal towns and surfing. He's going to surf. I'm going to drone and have fun and explore the little villages. And then we're going to Patagonia to like the glaciers. Like, what the hell?
So jealous.
And then drive back up the coast to Chile. But I think I'll be gone for like 2 weeks. So we'll have to record from the hotel in Chile.
Oh my God, I'm so excited for that.
Well, those stories are going to be hilarious.
This reminds me of like my U-Haul lesbian days, like when I would like just start chatting to like a girl, and she'd be like in Brizzy or something, and I once just like flew to Brizzy and just like saw her and like spent like 4 days with her, and like we were in love from that moment. You know what I mean? Like it just like, and like I just flew to Brizzy. So I can't imagine like flying to another country. Like I've had so many people on Raya being like, when their opening line is like, when are you going to come to like so-and-so country? And I'm like, when are you paying? Like,
yes.
And I can't believe like you're actually committing to this, because I also think, am I going to get murdered? Well,
the thing is, the reason I'm committing is because, look, I've done my research. I've figured it out. We have so many mutual friends. He's lived in Australia for like 10 years. He's like a permanent resident. He's a really nice guy. And this isn't about like running away and getting hitched and like falling in love. This is literally about like an adventure with a new friend who has something that I wish I had in terms of that adventure spirit, spontaneity, and like going with the flow vibes. And so I'm like just like literally like hijacking his holiday, and he's going to be my local tour guide who knows the lay of the land. Like it's perfection. And then I'm going to come back.
I mean, it's definitely working. It's definitely working in your favor, but like that's how they all start. Like, let's just go on adventure and let's just go with the flow. Next minute.
Well, we're going to get married on a volcano.
Who knows?
No.
Walking down the alpacas be walking you down the aisle.
Alpacas. But you know what the funny thing is that like it's not just him. Like his family are also. I'll be traveling with his family, so like his mum and his dad and his sister, and I'm like, okay, this is so interesting. Like, I would never.
Yeah, call me when
this.
you're engaged.
Do you think? No. It's not about that. Trust me.
I'm just taking the piss. I'm just absolutely taking the piss.
It's more about like I want to go and have 2 weeks, basically off grid. In like, I want to be a bit of a hippie. You know?
Yeah. Like that's exactly how I picture that is my dream holiday is being on a beach, like no obligations, nothing, and just reading books, exploring, just doing nothing. Like that
Meeting
is
locals,
my ultimate
eating
holiday.
local cuisine, talking to like old fellas who have lived in that village for like 140 years. No, don't. But you know them old fellas who are like going to cook you up a feed at the local restaurant. Like, I am a little bit scared, but I'm also like, you know what, I would never do this, so who cares? You know?
You know what I'd say in that situation? Just go with it.
I'm going to go. You know what? I just hope to come back with both kidneys and you know, and if I don't, someone's going to have to
bring me back an alpaca.
No, but I'm excited. I'll keep you mob up to date on what's happening with the adventure because, I'm definitely excited to get my Dora the Explorer on.
I feel like you've definitely been very deserving of this, and I think you need to go celebrate such a huge, you know, year and career, you know, things that you didn't get to celebrate, you know. So enjoy it. I would love, and if you have room in your suitcase, holla at your girl.
Holla. Well, in saying that,
bring me back a fucking alpaca.
You know what? I'll bring you back an alpaca. But I think that's all we have time for today. I'm getting the wrap-up call over here. Thanks for listening to Not So PG. If you love us, leave us a 5-star rating and a little review. And if you want to tell us something, follow us on social and slide into the DMs.
My handle is at Brooke.Blurton and Matty's handle is at It's Matty Mills. And you can follow all of the Nova Podcast action over at Nova Podcast Official. Goodbye.
Bye.